Hey, it's November 19th, 2024, 7:30 PM. Going to call the regular meeting of the Town of Willington Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Members present, myself, Bob Shabbat, Andy Marco, Doug Roberts, Becca Sinowski, and Bill Bennell. And no alternate here, so we'll be seating anybody else. No applications for receipt tonight. A public hearing brings us to item E, new business. Item 1, annual meeting schedule, approval of proposed 2025 dates.
Yeah, in the packet there. It's. So we have the one meeting in August and then the one in November for the election. Everything else is same, no changes.
I don't see anything wrong with this, unless somebody sees something.
Looks good.
Okay. For a motion,
I move that we adopt the presented schedule for our meetings in 2025.
I second that.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item number 2, 3 Polster Road, consideration of partial bond release and authorization to call remaining bond funds.
So, I had a quick call with Ken yesterday. So what I think I'm gonna suggest is if you guys make a motion to add under, we'll just at the bottom, I guess you can do it under staff report and discussion as number 3 for J, add an executive session. So I can kind of bring you up to speed on where we stand with the litigation as well. We'll have to come back to this because you can't obviously make any decisions during executive session, but so we can leave this on there and we'll come back to it.
So what we're gonna do, we're adding item 3 executive session and circling back around to item number 2 after we have the executive, okay.
Yep.
Okay, so that brings us to item F, unfinished business. PZ-24-8, text amendment application, section 3 and section 11.01 pertaining to changes to permitting requirements for home businesses. Applicant Willington PZC.
So what is in front of you is the clean version of all of the final edits. There's the last amendments that were made, I have in yellow, just so that you can see what they were. Just to clarify, this incorporates all the comments, all the edits. There's a clean final version. We can, still make some amendments to it if you're feeling like there's other things.
One question for you, Mike. Do you feel that this, as it sits now, is usable for your enforcement efforts here in town?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question, and, the one thing that this does is it provides very defined clarity of what types of businesses belong where. So whether they're something that comes to staff or something that comes to the commission. So I'm not sure that this is perfect. I don't know. I can't tell the future, but I think
there is a perfect.
yeah,
Right.
but at least it creates definition for what an operator or a neighbor for an operator should expect.
Okay.
Will we have to tweak it again?
But blatant non-compliance is gonna be easy to spot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we have not increased or made stronger the criteria. From what I've looked at this 6 different ways. I don't think there's a situation where someone is in compliance now. I'm fairly confident that there's not a compliant business now that wouldn't be compliant if this were to be
But
adopted.
I think that was our intention.
Right.
To do that.
There are businesses that are not compliant now that probably won't be able to get a permit, but they're not compliant now and they're not permitted now.
Okay.
So that nothing changes for them. So I feel like it's a good baseline. I think it strikes a chord with what a lot of other communities are doing, taking sort of that tiered approach. So that, you know, it comes out of a staff realm, goes into a commission realm, and then, okay, you're too big. But if we start to have issues, or if someone looks at this and says, how does this fit, or what about that, you know, we can always amend it.
Yeah. No, I just think we wrangled with it long enough and.
I agree.
I
You know,
think
we
what
can,
we
we can
were
change a
looking-
word or send it here. We keep doing that, but I'm not sure it does much more to this.
No, and.
You know, we spent a lot of time on this.
I think the major focus should be, you know, we have this. Is it enforceable?
Mhm.
Does it work? So it can be enforced, and if that's fits that criteria, I think we've done our job now.
And I think we're you know, it also is a spirit of being relatively business friendly, you know, we're not putting unnecessary burden on small business.
Right.
You know, it does categorize things a little better. We spent a lot of time going back and forth on this, so it's.
Well, and we offered it for public comment,
Yes.
and we ran out of public comment.
Yep.
And if that's the case, it, must not be too bitter a pill.
And I would make sure, I mean, I know you've all read it, but the last line on the second page, E. Any approval for a home business which has been previously issued shall continue to be governed by said previous approval, provided such renewal is sought and obtained prior to the expiration. So if you have a current permit and you maintain that permit and you're in compliance with that permit, no matter what these regulations say, you continue to operate under that permit. So any business that is permitted today, that has a permit and has done what they're supposed to do, nothing changes. We're telling them this section, we're not even saying you're non-conforming, because without this section, if we adopted these regs, if they have the approval, they just become pre-existing non-conforming. We're not saying that. We are literally telling them, you have that approval, provided you maintain it, you are good to go and you can continue it in perpetuity. So the only situation is if someone got an approval and let it lapse.
Right.
Or they never got an approval and therefore they're not in compliance. But this will not affect anybody negatively that has an existing approval.
So what's the intent of the phrase as may be amended
Where
at the end of that paragraph?
any previously issued approval for which has expired, shall be reviewed in accordance with these regulations. So if you have that approval and you let it lapse, then you're gonna have to come into compliance based upon what the regulations say at that time. So it's just,
So the amendment, so as amended wouldn't affect somebody who was in compliance?
no,
Okay, so if we amended something, they still get to operate.
right, yep. Regulations are never retroactive on someone that's doing everything they're supposed to do.
Okay.
No.
Did we just, it's been a while, the approval type for the home office, that's just a in the office signed off piece of paper, right?
For the home office, it's permitted by right, so you don't need a permit.
Okay, that's, I just see all this none and I'm,
Yep. So they don't go to a meeting. There's no minimum lot size, there's no permitted exterior evidence. They're limited to 25%.
but how do we know they have a home office? I guess if nothing is required and that says none all the way down, why,
They don't need anything from us.
okay,
So it's permitted by right,
okay.
sort of like a patio. You can do it, you don't need to ask first.
We'll do something this tonight.
It'd be good to get it.
I think we should vote on it.
I do too. We've been working on this for months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as Mike said, if something comes up where it's and it's tweaking, then we can, go back to the drawing board. Something unintended comes out of this, or
Well, we wanted to. We made this a priority this year.
Mhm.
And, I think we've mulled it over as much as possible.
we certainly, I didn't take a lack of time on it, that's for sure.
No, and we certainly gave the public, ample time to, comment.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion, to approve PZ 24-8, the text amendment application of section 3 and section 11.01 pertaining to changes to permitting requirements for home business.
Can I just have you set an effective date? We have to set an effective date, so you can pick a date that will be effective.
Much time from now, we can do
I
it.
want to do January, 1st.
Sure.
So we'll make, with an effective date of, January 1st, 2025.
Second,
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
I'm opposed.
okay. Reason on the record?
Oh, I don't know if I have to have a reason on that.
No, not really.
I mean, I think nothing I haven't expressed in the past,
Okay.
same reasons.
All right. Item 2, previous meeting minutes from September 17th, 2024.
Take a motion to approve the minutes of September 17, 2024.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item G, approval of minutes October 15th, 2024.
Minutes from October 15th, 2024.
I'll second that. Any discussion on it? All in favor? Aye.
I abstain,
Okay.
I've seen it.
wasn't here.
Congratulations on getting that, the board of finance approved the funding there.
Yeah.
For the piece of property, yeah, she did.
Has to
a
go
nice-
to town.
Has to go to town meeting,
Yeah.
that'll be done.
And that money will come just out of the open space.
Yep,
fund.
no, congratulations.
That was
That's
a
good.
well-prepared presentation, you know, and
Yeah,
that was,
We
makes a difference.
try to have our ducks in a row.
Information is critical.
It is.
All right, item H, correspondence, nothing, right?
Nothing that we're not gonna cover otherwise.
Item I, public participation for items not listed on the agenda.
So I want to bring up one thing. We have a regulation that doesn't allow bars. And I'm wondering if we should change that.
What kind of bars do we not allow?
Well, we don't allow bars. They have to serve food. You can't just have a bar. That's a prohibited use. So you have to have a restaurant. So it would mean that like the tavern on the green, couldn't get a dram license for beer and wine, for instance. They have to become a restaurant. That mean that the Eagle now has to become a restaurant. Couldn't just be or what used to be the Port known as. And I wonder if that is a sort of an archaic view of things. That there was, when I look at the regulations in town, I see a lot of it was, and Mike and I had a brief discussion about this earlier, that when drinking age was 18, if you remember all the bars that were in town, they were everywhere. There was the Keller Rock property had a bar, there was the bar and tavern on Marsh Road. I mean, every building that could be turned into a bar was turned into a bar. And people got nervous about that, so we restricted it. And I'm wondering if now, if that is still a valid stance that, I'm just throwing out there as something to consider. I mean, so what does that mean? If I have a microwave with hot pockets, I'm serving food.
A jar of pickled eggs.
Yeah, jar of pickled eggs, so yes, I mean, I'm just curious if that's still, if that fear is of rampant expansion. I mean, liquor permits probably back then were $5,000 and now they're probably $100,000. So there's some other prohibitions that I think will keep growth from going crazy. I don't see the establishments that are in town, thriving in the way they used to. So I don't know, just a thought that, I wonder if that's just an archaic prohibition that is no longer necessary.
I guess having some sort of food when you're serving alcohol, maybe it kind
Well,
of.
that's like that.
slows
Usually
down,
it's
like, how
designed,
fast the
right.
Alcohol gets absorbed and.
Yeah, I would think that,
Yeah.
but I think it was more the image of just having bars, filled with a bunch of 18-year-olds, which is what they were. And, that's long gone. Anyway, just something I wanted to throw out there because it was,
So,
On my
to look a little bit deeper into this. If we had a brewery or distillery come to town and they had a tasting room, usually not food associated
Right.
with that.
yeah,
I
I don't know about that. I don't know.
What's your take on that? Like, just, if,
Yeah, so maybe in 2021, we eliminated most of so we had section 14, which basically said there are these 5 classes of liquor permit. And then they listed all the sub permits which come from liquor control and basically said, you can have these classes in this fashion and these can't be here. And there's all these additional permit requirements in the classes. It had no correlation to what the Department of Consumer Protection has now. So we eliminated that separate section. But just as I was going through it, most of what I've seen just in the last minute treats the consumption of alcohol as an accessory use
Right.
to something.
Right.
Accessory use as part of a restaurant at a golf course or an accessory use with food sales or whatever. I think we lightened that up a little bit for we might have done it for South Willington, but I don't know if we called it out specifically. Because right now, the towns kind of take two approaches. They regulate alcohol, which is what Willington does, or they just regulate the use. So there are a lot of towns that don't even regulate alcohol. They just decide what you need to do to get an approval for a bar or a restaurant or a brewery. They don't regulate the actual sale of alcohol as something separate. And so if you want to do it that way, you just take the sale of alcohol out and you look at liquor stores, bars, taverns, those have just become permitted uses. There's a lot of really, really strict liquor control standards now and probably 100 different classes of permit.
Yeah, and the world has changed a bit, the demographic of people that do consume alcohol has changed. And,
Yeah.
you can buy weed now, things have changed.
We allow under the farm event facilities, we would allow certain
Right.
activities to happen
That's
in
right.
an R80 zone on a farm. So,
You look at like a brewery and a brewery and a winery like Taylor and Brooks, for instance,
Yeah.
it's like they sell like bagged snacks and things like
That's
that,
right.
food trucks.
Right, they do a lot of food trucks.
Yeah,
right, they
things like
partner.
that, so there
Yeah.
is food per se associated with it.
Right, but it's not a requirement.
It's not a restaurant by any means.
Right. Yeah. And I think it behooves restaurants.
What's that?
Westford Hill doesn't have any food. Oh.
no, but if they are, if they're like a tasting room because it's their own, then I think there's sort of a different, they're not importing
Yeah,
that, it's their own product. And so there's different rules for what they have to do. They're like, I don't know if they would qualify as like a farm distillery, but there's a totally different category of farm brewery versus a brewery. It's really complicated. And you can't change, it's very, very, very tricky.
It's just a thought.
No, I agree with you though, like times have changed somewhat. from
Yeah.
19-year-olds.
That's right, and I think restaurants may now want to encourage food, because I think people look for that. I think when you go out, you do want something. And they'll look at all these places that have partnerships with food trucks, which is a great partnership, actually. You know, they have a food truck there, and people actually follow the food truck to different places. There's lots of food trucks around and all over Yukon. So anyway, just a thought. And that's all I want to say about public participation.
Yeah, I don't see anyone else for it, so. Move on to staff report discussion, item 1, battery energy storage project.
So I just wanted to just give an update. We had a community meeting, I think it was on the 28th of October at the senior center. We sent out approximately 65 letters to people, any property owner within 1,000 feet of the project, just to sort of get everybody in a room. They presented to you guys quite some time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago now.
And they've done outreach as required by the siting council, but we're sort of in this situation where more people have become aware of it now.
Some people are upset about this.
Yeah. So, we're in a bit of a pickle because the town, they presented to us, the siting council requires that they send notices to direct abutters, which they did. They're required to notify the town, which they did. They're required to do some type of outreach and present, which is, they came here, they went to wetlands, there was board selectmen meeting, I believe. So they've done all the things the siting council requires, but it doesn't necessarily allay any concerns of people that maybe 2 parcels removed, and so they feel like it's just as close, but they didn't get a notification. So we sent out notices, the developer came down, if that's what you wanna call them, and we had a, 3-hour meeting, where he provided information and answered as many questions as he could, and, I don't know if everybody left happy, but people certainly left with information from the horse's mouth. I think, this is more of a growing issue, and towns are starting to rally, with the siting council because they have bills to allow municipalities that have projects in their communities that would give them a seat at the table have sort of routinely failed. So there was a bill even last session where, okay, you have a project, they would then have a representative from that community that could go and sit on the siting council board so that there's at least someone that can speak and talk and represent the perspectives, and so that legislation has been unsuccessful, but, you know, we'll see what that looks like. So we're working to get the information they provided, are working to draft written responses to all the questions that they kind of had outstanding, which we'll make available. But the recording is online, so if you're interested or you talk to somebody that wants to know about it or has questions, they can go online and they can see the full, did the screen share so they can see the presentation. But we're talking an area that's, you know, not even an acre of the 60-acre parcel. The other thing I think is that they have a contract that basically they have to remove everything at the end of their lease. So when they're done and they leave, they will pull literally everything out of the ground. Nothing they have goes below 2 feet. So that stuff all comes out and they paint themselves out of the room. There's no transmission lines. This is not a high tension power line. It'll be a connection like you'd have with a business connecting to a pole at the street. And the full siting council and all their information, all the studies, all the plans, all the hearings, all the minutes, all that stuff is online. So if people do ask you, you can send them to us and I'll get them a link to all the information. They can go through everything. The next step for them is they would like the town to enter into, as we've talked about, a tax stabilization agreement, which would just take the total taxes that they will pay over the 20 years that they have to be in operation per Eversource, and take the total payment and divide it equally into 20 payments, you know, rather than a really high payment up front and then having to basically devalue the project over time. So there's a lot of benefits to both sides for that. I don't know what will happen. The town has always, we'd have to, you know, get an ordinance together.
Yeah, Selectman Clark said he's going to another, on Monday, he said he's going to another meeting on
Yes.
that.
2 weeks.
The overall flavor of Fourth Cycle was, probably sounds fine. My question was, is there a, what's the term? It's not cost of living, but, some sort of annual increase of, inflation adjustment. Is it adjusted for inflation? And that's a question that Matt didn't know, but he would find out.
So the agreement can say, yeah, so we're meeting, that's me, Matt, I think Peter are gonna be meeting with the first selectman in East Windsor.
Well, that's what, yeah, that's what,
Yes.
right.
So I've been in East Windsor for 5 years now, and East Windsor is the location of what they call gravel pit solar, which is the largest ground mount solar project basically on the East Coast. It's 600 or 800 acres.
Wow.
It's like 140 megawatts or something. It's 1,200 homes is the equivalent power output.
Wow.
So they have a tax stabilization agreement. I think the short answer is the agreement can include whatever the agreement includes. The one thing that was unclear when I first asked the question was starting to talk to different folks, including attorneys, was that one of the reasons why East Windsor thought that it was really important to go with a stabilization agreement, aside from the fact that you know exactly how much money you're getting, aside from the fact that your assessor is not now figuring out how to devalue a battery project that has no comps. And most litigation related to assessment in municipalities in Connecticut is related to commercial assessments, right? You think it's worth $1 million, we think it's worth 500,000, so we're gonna take you to court and fight it. And there's a real risk for that, as with any project, but an agreement would supersede any changes to a statute after that. So between now and the next 20 years, if the state says energy, you know, equipment related to solar, battery, wind, you know, to promote green energy or whatever, they are now exempt from personal property tax, right? So in Connecticut, most warehouse, you know, manufacturing equipment doesn't pay personal property tax. It's exempt. If they were to adopt a statute that said the same thing, this would supersede that. And so that was one of the main reasons why East Windsor pushed forward, is because there is a strong push in the state to exempt solar. So there's some information, there's I don't know if it's a statute or an act or a law, but it would be, it's not legal for the state to do that because they would be engaging in essentially trade practices. in contracts law, right? I have a contract with you, you can't pass something after the fact that says that contract is void. So whatever we get into the agreement is in place for that 20 years, and it could include whatever types of things you want it to. I've got some examples and like I said, I'm really familiar with that. So we'll be meeting with Jay to get his perspective on all that. But I just wanted to kind of keep people in a loop and get it into the minutes so more people know where the project stands. As far as lot zip, I'm
Got Ralph in the waiting room.
as far as lot zip is concerned, so we have gone through the whole process. The last thing that we had to do was basically get DOT's traffic division to review the plan because it's a state road. And they have taken a completely different perspective than the DOT engineering division that did the initial review and gave us our initial commitment to fund. And the engineers that reviewed on behalf of CROG and the State Historic Preservation Office and everybody else has reviewed it. They have completely changed their minds. They do not approve of the lane width that we have. They want an additional foot. And the additional foot means we either have to remove the islands or completely expand the curb line 12 inches to the, I guess it would be east on the opposite side of the school. Which is gonna have right-of-way impacts, it's gonna have impacts to property owners. Everything that we have been done to this point is designed with temporary easements. We are not actually taking any property. So that's a huge issue. We've been fighting them on it. I'm a little bit at a loss for what to do, but we're not going to spend another $20,000 to redesign the project at this stage. DOT is a little bit hard to deal with sometimes because you meet with 8 of them and it's not any one person's decision. And so therefore you don't actually get an answer because they're sort of collectively saying, this is what we want. So I need to get back with CROG and say, what can we do about this? How can you help us? We are not going to redesign this project. So that was hugely frustrating, but I guess it's not uncommon. From what I'm hearing from DOT, that they sort of said, sorry, we didn't review it. Those guys reviewed it and it has to come through both offices, and not our fault that we feel differently than the people that work a floor below us, I guess.
Is there a lesson there that you submitted? Does it have to follow that linear progression?
Yeah,
So, I see. So,
yeah, because the lot zip program comes out of federal transportation dollars, which are funneled to the state DOTs.
yeah.
And so it's a state road.
No, I know that the fact that traffic didn't, engineering said, yeah, all these people were saying yes, and then traffic
Yeah.
said no. Could it have gone to traffic first or anything, or?
Their process is really
Very
prescriptive.
prescriptive. That's what
We
I
send it to them, they give us a commitment to fund. Once we get the commitment to fund, CROG then says, okay, do your design. We did our design. Then CROG has a third-party engineer, which is Beta. Beta does the review. They did 3 rounds of reviews. We did 3 rounds of revisions. We then submit it back. It has to go to SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office. We had to get confirmation that there were no going to be wetland impacts. We had to send it to somebody else. They had to review to make sure there weren't any potential archaeological issues if we were gonna be doing
Yeah,
construction. Then we had to have our bid package reviewed and the whole design manual. We did public outreach, notified all the butters. Each time updating a cost estimate, how much it's gonna cost, what it's gonna include. And so now we're at the last step, just needing to get the final DOT blessing so we can literally go out to bid. And they've said, no, we don't like those lane widths, they need to be a foot wider. And what it comes down to is they've classified River Road as a certain designation of roadway. And so when you call it that designation, they want a minimum lot, lane width of X. And the engineers on both sides believe it's something different, and that was what allows for the lesser lane width. Which is also why I think they rejected the town's request to reduce the speed limit some years ago. So we're not doing nothing. I know it's been a painfully long process, but option 1 is I gotta go to the Board of Finance, ask for money to redesign per the DOT, and then tell all of these property owners that they're now gonna have right-of-way impacts after we've told them they wouldn't. And then get a new construction budget pulled together and basically revise everything and then try to go out to bid. Or try to run up the flagpole at DOT, so I'm going to go with option one. At least for now, because we're not doing anything through the winter. But it's been incredibly frustrating and, you know, we're sort of at their mercy, but that's the status. Stay tuned.
Guess the lesson is don't get your hopes up until everything is done.
Yeah, little, and you may have noticed that in the last year or two, they've done some work out there. They put in those RRFB, the rapid flashing beacons. DOT put those in for us because they were going to be doing work on River Road. We sent them our plans and they said, rather than us doing this other thing, we're going to put in these components of your plan. So those beacons are put in to exactly align with the crossings that we have on our plan. And so how could you now say, after you've done work that's on our plan in alignment with what we are doing, that you now then want us to change everything? Right, you reduce our pedestrian, it makes no sense.
Maybe they don't realize that they did that work.
Oh, I told them, they heard from me, but. So anyways, if anybody knows any people in the upper floors of
Extra
DOT.
work. They
Huh?
put it in, now they gotta take it out to put it in again.
If they wanna put it in again, I'm fine, I just want them to get there. They've taken it out, let's put it back in, we've done everything that we can think of. So, you know, we're gonna have utility impacts that we weren't gonna have before. We're gonna have issues with people's septics and wells and stuff that they have along there, that it's just gonna be. So, we got our work cut out for us. That's all I got.
Get rid of the island.
Yeah, that's the hill I wanna die on though.
Yeah.
Because the only way to really slow down the traffic is to have that space in the middle. And so that's what they want. They don't want the islands. They've pushed back on the islands from the very beginning. So now they're saying, well, you can fix our problem, just get rid of the islands.
Yeah.
And so that's what they want. But when you look at Phil and he says, well, when we do the speed tests, we've got people going 75 miles an hour down River Road. And we have everybody's parking on this side of the street and crossing. And then you say, okay, now we've got the church and they park on this side of the street and they cross. And then you talk to Tom Ducino at the mill and he says, well, we've had someone hit here. I think it was a fatal. There was a person that was hit out there. I don't know if it was a fatal, but there was a very serious accident there.
I don't remember anyone.
And they also park across the street. And you don't have sight lines to get someone that might be slower or disabled or with a stroller. They're moving so fast in some of the topography, they really don't have the sight lines you would want for them to get across the whole road. So the island gives them a place to stop in the middle if they get out there and realize, oh crap, that guy's coming much faster than I thought. They won't let us. DOT says if you're gonna have an island, it's gotta be this wide. Exactly. So,
So it's interesting that
Speed bumps,
coming through
Get
a
freight tickets.
spike strips.
populated area, they don't see the usefulness in narrowing the lanes.
well, yeah, they don't acknowledge that there's any difference between any part of River Road. So the part of it that's on the Talon line that is wide open, 100 feet wide, 1,000 miles an hour, it's the same road to them as right in front of the school. They're not looking at it any differently. It's the same road classification, which is the problem. Like, this is like a village center. This is not a state road, high speeds, high visibility. They don't.
Well, that's what's interesting, I don't know, Vermont, New Hampshire, you go up there and you'll be tooting along on this road and all of a sudden it says village speed ahead. And
It drops like.
drops from 50 to
And then you
35.
get pulled over.
Yes.
minutes Later.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Is there any way to get them to come out to that section of road? Like,
What do you mean?
like do a site walk
Oh.
instead of just, hey, look at it on paper.
We did.
But these new guys,
Did you do a traffic study?
We didn't do a traffic study because it's all designed based upon the whatever, uniform traffic control design, whatever manual, that engineering, and it's all been reviewed. DOT endorsed the plans before CROG would even give us the money. And then we've had our engineers review it, CROG's engineers reviewed it, CROG looked at it, DOT looked at it, they came out, we met with them, we walked the whole thing. They put the beacons in based upon our plans.
this new level that's saying no,
Hmm.
have they seen the road in the area?
I don't know if they've been out to the site. We've only had one meeting with them and they've been just one virtual call, but,
Do
I'd
you
try
have,
and have them come out.
yeah.
do you have data that shows how fast people are actually going? against the,
So I tried to get that, I guess they had done some of that stuff where they put some, whatever, I don't know if it's a cart or whatever else, but it doesn't, there's no. They don't have like a download for that, so we could do that, but
Garmin makes a thing for your bicycles now for $400.
yeah. Well, so there's a, what do they call it, the pack or
Interfaces to your smartphone,
the,
gives you a radar of oncoming vehicles 140 meters behind you, how fast they're going.
Wow.
If it hits you, it sends a video to where you want to go to.
there's like the transportation, I forget, accident, something or other affiliated with Yukon, it's escaping me. They have all kinds of equipment that towns can use for free. So they have traffic counters, they've got all kinds of stuff. So if we wanted to throw stuff out there and try to get that data, we could. But when we asked before the DOT, they basically said, yeah, we're not changing the designation. We don't do that.
I'm just saying, it'd
Yeah.
be hard to dispute the data if it's marked 25 miles an hour and people are going 40 all the time, or 50 or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's much higher than that from what I've been told from others. So,
Might be worth another shot. We do seem to have some state legislators that are paying attention and listening,
yeah,
so.
I have, yeah,
All right, well,
continue on that.
Couple questions on the battery project. I know I had brought up, that mound of dirt that, blocks the line of sight where the trees are and the pole is, and now with the.
That's the
solar panels-
that's solar. The battery project is on Village Hill.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I
That's
guess,
the,
well, going to the solar
yeah,
project,
mhm.
so they've got this array of, all the bracket, all the stands are there. Are they still planning to remove that mound of dirt now that hardware is all in place?
I have to look at the topographic plan to see what was on it.
Because we asked them, or I know I asked them to, the trees are still there, and the mound of dirt hasn't moved.
So between the racking and the exit ramp,
Yeah, if you
Or the
get
up-
off of 84.
Yeah.
Right, 71, and if you're looking down the road to
Mhm.
TA, there's a mound of dirt, so you have to keep coming up,
I know that they got approval for some, small amount of clearing there. I don't know if DOT, because that's all DOT.
Mhm.
I don't know if they got approval for actually removing material, but I'll check.
Okay,
all right. Brings us to item 3, executive session.
Okay. I'm gonna stop the recording.
I make a motion that we go into executive session at this time.
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I'm going to.
Okay, it's 8:32 PM. We're now out of executive session. Return to the regular meeting. All right, we're back to item number 2 under new business, 3 Polster Road, consideration of partial bond release and authorization to call remaining bond funds. You wouldn't care to make a motion, Becca?
I move to authorize the zoning agent to utilize funds provided by the financial guarantees for 3 Polster Road to perform any necessary work as identified on the approved site plan.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. That being said, item K. It is 8:32 PM, meeting adjourned.